welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire. And today we have a very special show. You know, enough with the WrestleMania talk. I've had about enough WrestleMania talk to last me a lifetime. And, you know, it comes around every year. So this week we're going to be talking baseball. We just had opening day a couple days ago, and I have two great guys on the show tonight, big baseball fans. One is the usual Benny Scala. You've seen him on the show many times, Yankees fan, and our pal Alfred Parsard, who has not been on the show, Junior, who hasn't been on the show for a couple of years. Glad to have you back, and you're a Mets fan, so my greatest sympathies towards you. And then of course I, Buddy Sotelo, hardcore Giants fan, and yes, I will apologize ahead of time for Vince Russo, because he's also a fellow Giants fan, and I have to apologize for him, you know, as I don't want to necessarily be associated with Vince Russo for anything, but Giants fan he is. So anyway, guys, welcome to the show. And so we have so many things to talk about. First of all, Yankees are 4-0 out of the box. You guys are what, 1-3?
0-3.
0-3, and we're 2-2. Giants are 2-2. So we're all over the map here. What are your thoughts about like how your teams are going to do this season, Benny?
You know, it's such a long season. I don't have a lot of confidence about this team. I'm very happy that they added Juan Soto, great addition, a couple other pickups they made. But, you know, pitching is so much in baseball. And with, with Garrett Cole, with his status uncertain for the year, they're saying a couple of months. It doesn't look good. I mean, I'm thinking the guy's going to be gone for the year. Nestor Cortez pitched opening game. He looked pretty below average. So, you know, pitching is a question. You know, your bats can only carry you so far. So I think the Yankees they'll probably get in the playoffs. I think they're going to win it, 92 games, 91 games. But, for them to go all the way is going to be a stretch at this point.
Alfred, what are your thoughts about the Mets?
I'm predicting 93 to 96 losses for us this year.
Ooh.
Wow.
I was going to say wins? You must be crazy. But losses, I might be with you on that.
I'll tell you, the front office did a terrible job this offseason. We only have one notable free agent. We got J.D. Martinez, and he missed most of spring training. The Scott Boras Six, as they're called. They all were late additions to camp. So with Martinez, the only notable pickup, Senga is hurt to start the season. He may not come back till June. The rotation is horrible. We basically have a bunch of number fives as our starters. Jose Quintana used to play for the Cardinals. He was a number 5 there. Adrian Hauser was a number 5 in Milwaukee, and he's in our rotation. And then, Tyler McGill, he was never a top guy in our rotation. So our rotation is hurt right now. The bullpen is terrible. We have a rookie manager, which doesn't make anything better. So it's not looking good.
Which is amazing because you guys are number 3 in payroll, aren't you?
We have the richest owner in all of baseball, and he didn't want to spend any money this offseason.
And last year he did, and it didn't get him very far. So That's really interesting. And as a Giants fan, we've got the Dodgers as the big brother in our league and in our division, and it's not going to be easy. But I do like the addition of Bob Melvin as our head coach. I really think that it's very telling that Kapler didn't get a lot of calls on his phone when he left the Giants. Yeah. There weren't a lot of teams really interested in picking him up. I think Farhan Zaidi, the president of operations, really GM out here, kind of, even though he got a 3-year extension, I think he feels that if this fails and it fails badly, he'd be the next one to get fired, because they're not going to fire Melvin as head coach. They just got him. So if someone fails here, no matter what, it's going to be Zaidi's fault. And, that's why he, at the very last second, got Chapman and Snell. And I think that those two additions are basically franchise-altering trades for the Giants. Snell looks great in his first 4 games out as a Giant, and he had a couple home runs in one game, and he's a really wonderful fielder, and we've really upgraded that position, especially as we tried for so long with Evan Longoria to make anything happen at third base, and he was always hurt constantly. And no, Chapman's great, and when Snell gets here, we'll see what this team is capable of. Certainly, that's the one nice thing, is that it's a long season, and that extra wild card spot brings a lot of teams hope towards the end of the season. Even if you're playing poorly, you can somehow crawl into that final spot, even if you're under 500 as a team. You just got to hope that the teams in front of you aren't doing well.
Yeah.
So, that's, but as we can see, Benny has put up the elephant that's in the room right now as his background picture. And I certainly want to hear your guys' opinions on what do you think about the Ohtani situation and what should be done. Benny.
Show me the money. Shohei Ohtani, right? Well, I told you before the show, I think Vince McMahon is sending candygrams to Shohei Ohtani and Diddy for taking the spotlight off of him. But I really, this is still, I think this scandal is still in its infancy. I think there's many, there's going to be a lot more to go with this thing. My first blush when I heard about it, I'm a numbers guy. I did, finance and accounting for many years, and I heard that there was an Ippei Mazuhara, I think his name is, the interpreter. When I found out that he supposedly racked up $4.5 million worth of gambling debts, I'm thinking, all right, well, I mean, how much does a translator make? It's come out that he's made maybe he makes between $300,000 and $500,000 a year. So what?
It's a job I wouldn't mind having. I'd learn Japanese.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll go enroll in a university tomorrow, and it's but how does somebody making $300,000 get a line of credit for $4.5 million? That defies all logic, and it just seems weird that
he had a comic book collection.
Yeah, maybe he had some collateral, but it just seems odd that. The initial story was that, he incurred these debts and Ohtani was paying them for him. He wasn't really happy about it. And then the next day they walked that entire story back, and now Ohtani knew absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah, they said he stole it. Alfred, yeah. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of questions. Number one, I am not a resident of California, but it is my understanding that sports betting is not legal in California.
That is correct.
We voted it down.
So correct. The big question, especially because I live in New York, sports betting didn't become legal here until 2 years ago. But to my knowledge, and this is the biggest red flag for me in this whole story, is that this is a local guy who ran an offshore book. What local guy who runs his own operation is going to give anybody a credit of $4.5 million?
Right.
I could understand if he went to another state and gambled on FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, or whatever, where you have to use your own money in order to bet. But from my understanding, the guy gives you credit, and if you use the credit and don't win, you have to pay back the credit he gave you.
Yeah, no more credit.
So my thing is, I don't know. I don't know anybody who could just say, "Oh, well, here's a credit for $4.5 million. Let's see. Do what you will, and if you win, I'm going to pay you." Because if he incurred $4.5 million of debt, that means that he was placing $1 million bets. Meaning, had he won, would this guy have even paid him to begin with? And then the other thing, how do you wire transfer $4.5 million and not know about it? It's impossible, because no bank is going to allow somebody who's not you, because I'm pretty sure you have to show an ID when you walk into the bank and say, I'd like to transfer $1.5 million to this other guy's account. So that if the translator did it, how did he get around it? How did he get around bank security protocols unless somebody in the bank wasn't doing their job? Which If you transfer millions of dollars and you don't let the account holder do it, it's somebody else, you're going to lose your job. Nobody's going to lose their job over that. I think Shohei had something to do with it because there's no way that you get flagged for transactions like that and it's not you.
And also going logically, I mean, Shohei's got to have accountants and CPAs that work for him that would notice this money going out the door. I mean, it's not like $10 or $15 are missing because he goes to Burger King and, you know, racks up a lunch on it. It's not like he's got his Netflix account based off of Ohtani's, main bank account. It showed, and some people are saying, well, maybe he helped finance it for him. And it's like, you wouldn't trust a translator. When you're as rich as Ohtani, you will have specialists that do everything. You have the money to hire specialists to do everything. And you wouldn't think that a guy like Ohtani would have some kind of bunk person, just handling his finances. So that's a big thing there. And also, what is interesting is that none of this stuff came to light when he was with the Angels. It only happened when the Dodgers,
right.
The transaction.
After the big contract.
Yeah, and he got the big contract.
The only thing that I could think that might prove him innocent, because I've heard, I read the comments on every message board that I'm in, and some people say, "Oh, well, he just got $700 million. Why would he go and gamble $4.5 million when he just got 700?" So,
he would. I don't believe he did. I don't believe Ohtani did, but I do think that he bailed out his translator and knew that it was for gambling, which does make it illegal under California law and makes it illegal under baseball's rules. Now let's talk about that, shall we? Since Pete Rose still isn't in the Hall of Fame and Shoeless Joe still isn't in the Hall of Fame, what do we say about Ohtani and whether should he be suspended? Should we just turn a blind eye to it? What's the right thing to do, Benny?
Well, again, I mean, it's kind of the innocent until proven guilty, but this puts such a huge cloud over Major League Baseball, and that Manfred is going to do nothing about it. I mean, he's going to be blinded by the light like the other Manfred, the Manfred man, wrapped up like a deuce. I just
or a deuce.
Or a douche, right? I don't see how. I still think my personal opinion is that Ippei made the best for Ohtani, because that would make a lot more sense. I mean, certainly somebody of Ohtani's net worth would be extended a $4.5 million line of credit. Who's going to worry about that? Yeah, sure, you're good for it. You made $100 million this year. The other guys, making $300,000. How once you incur that kind of debt, how are you gonna get that kind of money? What are you gonna do? Sell a kidney? So
that's the whole thing. Ohtani, is trying to say, or his translator is trying to say that it was a loan. But I'd like one of my friends to loan me $4.5 million with no paperwork, no collateral, no signature, and not even an email saying, "Hey, thanks for the money." That's it's
right. And here's the other thing, though. Supposedly they quote unquote turned it over to the authorities, meaning Ohtani and his team. But this guy Ippei is still walking around a free man, right? So, I mean, if you really thought that somebody stole $4.5 million from you, wouldn't you have that person in jail immediately? Especially if you had proof.
I don't even know if he's been fired.
No, he has been fired.
Oh, he has been fired. Okay.
He's been fired, but he's not been arrested or charged with anything.
No. Yeah. No. There's been he only brought it up to the police after ESPN, ran the story saying that he did this, and then Ohtani found out he could be in trouble from Major League Baseball on it.
I think that's what it is. I think the second version of the story came after MLB said, "Hey, look, you can't be associated with this in any way, shape, or form. Even if you helped the guy out and you paid him back, you wired money to a bookie, which is illegal in California. We can't have you being associated with that."
Yeah, but in the end, you think baseball is going to do nothing?
I don't think baseball. I think at this point, this is a federal thing. So, I mean, would they do anything? No, absolutely not. Ohtani's there. Ohtani and Aaron Judge are the faces of baseball. Well, why would you tamper with that? And but the much larger powers in play here. So I think we have to see what the feds do about it.
Alfred, what's your thought?
Manfred has already proven that he doesn't care. So even if Ohtani is guilty, he might just get a slap on the wrist, maybe a suspension. Yeah. But we're talking about a sport governed by a commissioner who referred to the World Series trophy as a piece of tin, and he's authorized uniforms that look horrible. He claims his own
uniforms.
Yeah, he's claimed that his sport that he governs is the most boring sport in North America. He doesn't care. And honestly, with the global reach that Ohtani has and the audience he has, if they were to ever ban him, they would lose. Baseball is already a sport that's declining in popularity. That would make the situation so far much worse.
Absolutely.
If they did that.
So what does this mean then? Every baseball player that goes into any clubhouse, thou shall not gamble, is right there. We supposedly made Pete Rose, the sacrificial lamb for gambling, if not Shoeless Joe, as being, the pariahs in baseball for gambling. And yet, here you just both admit, and I agree with you, that baseball will just probably go, look down at the floor and look up at the ceiling and whistle and just hope that, there's going to be, Miley Cyrus is going to have, octuplets tomorrow, and that will take everything off the pages when it comes to, Ohtani and gambling.
Right. Agreed, because, they're going to – I mean, you can't minimize this, though, because you have wire transfers to an illegal bookmaker. That is a crime. They have Ohtani's name on them. And I'm sorry, but these things started, I believe, in September or October. So how does he just know about it in the last couple of days? I don't believe that.
You guys we're all on the same page. We may be different baseball fans from coast to coast, but we absolutely agree on this element. So I'm with you on that. So meanwhile, there's I think that Ohtani is going to probably get away with all this, and I don't know if it's the kind of thing that you think that then Pete Rose should be allowed in the Hall of Fame if they're going to, go and double back on this and not do anything. What do you think?
I don't think Pete Rose ever gets in. Baseball has, for such a self-righteous sport, there definitely is a double standard, and he, unfortunately, from older regimes, has been the victim of double standards.
Yeah, you feel the same thing, Benny?
I mean, at this point, the guy's paid the price. I mean, how much has he hurted personally by not being in the Hall of Fame? I mean, if they inducted him, I wouldn't have any issue with it. I mean, the guy's when was he banned? At what year? I don't even know.
Like the late 80s?
80. So 30. I mean, at least 35 years. Somebody who would have been easily a first ballot inductee, has been banned from the Hall of Fame. I say let him in.
I'm not a fan of gambling, and I think sports gambling has more negatives than positives to it, to be honest with you. I think that there's more things about gambling and how it affects sports than it does. I could bore you guys with the story of my dad being the fraternity brother of Jack Molinas. If you ever look that up, he was the only guy ever in the NBA to be kicked out of the NBA for point shaving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jack Molinas. He was a fraternity brother of my dad's, and I just see that the temptation of gambling. Like, I'm also, here in Northern California, I was really rooting for the Kings in 2002 against the Lakers. I don't know if you guys remember that series where
Robert Horry.
We have Robert Horry, but also Mike Bibby's nose fouling Kobe Bryant's hand is one of the things that I think is one of the most outrageous. There's in Game 5, there's stuff on YouTube showing some of the absolutely most outrageous fouls being called on the Sacramento Kings by Donaghy. And we know that Donaghy was on the take, that he was betting on and gambling on basketball. And it's insidious. I find that the temptation for people to cheat for gambling reasons is just too overwhelming. And when money becomes big, like we just saw with Ohtani's translator, we don't know what things that translator did, or if anything Ohtani did to try to help out his friend gambling. There's always ways that you can strike out a few times, or if he's going to pick the team that you're going up against, you can tank your game and make sure your team tanks in order to make a bet.
That was the argument with Rose, or it's been the argument with Rose. As the manager, he can manipulate the outcome of the game. He can leave a pitcher in too long that he knows is obviously tired and needs to come out.
Or just put in a bad lineup. Just put in a crappy lineup.
Not put a guy in as a pinch hitter who has batted .091 against the guy he's hitting against, when there's somebody much better, on the bench. In that sense,
then Gabe Kapler probably was betting a lot against the Giants last year. But yes.
I will say this, though. I am a firm believer that Shoeless Joe Jackson didn't throw that World Series, because if you look at his stats from the series, the guy was hitting, I think, over 364. He had the second most hits in the series. A guy who's trying to lose on purpose, who places money on a game, is not going to perform well in a game that he bet against himself to lose.
There's logical sense there, As I said, I think that there should be what the Baseball Hall of Fame should have also its Hall of Shame. The corridor that leads to the bathrooms. And that's where you put like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and Ty Cobb. You can put him there, and you can put maybe Ohtani gets his place there, and then like maybe Barry Bonds gets a urinal. You dedicate a urinal to.
Or they could be like Barry Bonds, urinal cakes. I don't know. Who knows?
But then I'd be up for letting these guys in the Hall of Fame if you told the truth about them. But we know, as you guys pointed out, baseball is so full of contradictions that it probably would never, want to tell the truth about that.
I think they're more concerned with their image than they are with doing what's right.
Actually, I think what they're really concerned about is keeping that antitrust exemption. I think that's like their biggest fear. Is like if they ever did something wrong enough to make, Congress pull that weird antitrust exemption that baseball has that no other sports has. It's very bizarre that baseball.
It would be really funny though if it's found that Ohtani did do, was the gambler. Man, he's a hell of a liar. He went up to that podium with a poker face and disavowed everything.
Yeah. Well, maybe you got a better translator. The guy told him, exactly what to say, as opposed to Mitsuhara, who obviously had.
And the other thing though is, how long did they know each other? It's like 8 years.
Yes.
And it just seems odd that they were like the best of friends from all accounts.
Look, I know people for 45 years, and they don't have my ATM passcode.
Right, but supposedly this is commonplace with an interpreter that they actually will get access to an account. But so for the last 8 years, nothing happened, and we're led to believe all of a sudden the guy turned into a criminal overnight. I don't know. It's kind of strange.
Definitely bizarre. Any other thoughts on that, Alfred?
I've said all that I think. I definitely think there's more to the story that the public doesn't know about, but it just seems a little fishy. That's all. But I think Ohtani will come out unscathed. The interpreter will probably be the scapegoat. He's already been and the funny thing is, their season had already started by the time this thing came out, because he was with the Dodgers. The interpreter was with the Dodgers in Korea when they played the Padres.
Right.
And that's when they said that's when the story broke, and he was in the dugout. He went after the game. He issued a team apology to the team, and then he was fired the next day.
It's one of the stranger stories in baseball. But so let's find out a little bit more about you guys and why you guys are the fans of the teams that you're a fan of. So, Benny, you want to tell us about why you're a fan of the New York Yankees?
Well, I just, because I grew up on Long Island, New York, but I am one of those rare people that even though I've been a diehard Yankees fan for now going on 60 years, I am also a Mets fan. The reason why is because my dad was a service manager for a Chevy dealership on Long Island. And at the time, one of his customers was the PR director for the Mets. So we would get, whenever I wanted to go, we could sit in the press box. So, I went to hundreds and hundreds of Mets games. And actually, growing up on Long Island, Shea Stadium in Flushing was logistically a lot closer. Going to the Bronx was a hike. And in the 70s or 60s and 70s, it wasn't the nicest place to go. It's a lot better now. But I went to see the Mets against the Cubs. I think it was the night before Tom Seaver threw the near perfect game in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah. July something, 1969, the night before. And that's when they were in the process of overtaking the Cubs to wind up in first place. And then, they went on to win the World Series that year. But I have a lot of love for the Mets. Most people in New York, you're in one corner or the other. If they've met in the World Series, I'd want the Yankees to win. But I wouldn't be crushed if the Mets won. And if the Mets were in the World Series, I'm going for them.
And Alfred, where did you get your love of the Mets from?
My mom actually grew up a diehard Mets fan back in the day. When she was a young kid, she attended a game of the '69 World Series, and again as an adult, when she was a young adult, attended a game in the '86 World Series. She was actually there when the fans stormed onto what was that Shea Stadium after they had won their last game at home. I think it was Game 6, I believe. So so that she passed it down to me. I grew up in a house where Yankees baseball was never allowed to be on the TV. Those days of WWOR playing Mets games, Ralph Kiner on commentary. So that's
Ralph Kiner, Lindsey Nelson, and Bob Murphy.
Yep. So
Bob
that
Murphy was such a good announcer. Oh my God. Even as a Yankee fan, I'd flip on whatever station the Mets were on just to listen to Bob Murphy call the game because he painted such a great word picture. Listening to the radio was better than watching on TV.
Definitely.
And I feel the Mets have had, as far as regional broadcast booths go, they've had the better tandem because even now with Gary Cohen and Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling, I feel like those three are the best in the business. Even though when I do watch the rare Giants game, I do like Dwayne Kuiper.
Those guys are great.
Yep.
And John Miller is fantastic.
Oh yeah. Growing up as a kid, nationally televised games had some good teams too. I vividly remember Joe Buck and Tim McCarver on Fox,
and Joe Morgan.
John Miller and Joe Morgan on Sunday Night Baseball. And recently, Matt Vasgersian with his Santa Maria for home run calls has been a favorite of mine too.
That's great. Well, my uncle had season's tickets to the Giants, and so
nice.
I went, to see Mays and McCovey at Candlestick Park, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to Oracle Park, the AT&T / Pac Bell / 15 other names, but it's amazing. It's really people. It's hard for me to believe that it's 25 years old next year. It's a quarter century, and it looks brand new. I mean, when you go back in there, it's the jewel of downtown San Francisco. And as soon as I walked in there, I said to myself, why wasn't this park always here? And why didn't it always look like this? I was like, this is the way a baseball park should look. And more than football, more than basketball, baseball parks mean so much. They mean more to a team than anything else. A football field is, pretty static. It's not. You can't change the dimensions of your football field, but baseball parks can have different layouts, and the walls can be different. Like at Oracle, there's just a lot of things about Oracle that makes it such a unique baseball park, and it really adds the environment. You're sitting at a baseball game so much longer. Well, now they've made things a little shorter with the pitch clock and all that. But when you sit in a baseball stadium, I think the stadium means more to you when you're sitting in it than when you're in other environments where you're really focused on the game. I think the baseball, you think more about the stadium that you're in while you're watching a game. Maybe because it's the pace of the game. You're more aware of your surroundings and your environment in a baseball game than you are at a football or a basketball game.
Well, I have to tell you two things, which will both point to how old I am. But, the first game I ever saw was at Shea Stadium, but it was the Mets. It was August 23rd, I think. I can look it up on Baseball Reference. I think it was August 23rd, 1964. Mets versus San Francisco Giants. Now, we did not have a colored TV at that time. We had a black and white. So when you walked, through the ramp to where your seats are and you saw the different colored seats and the infield, that burst of color was, to somebody who had watched every game of their life on a black and white TV set, I can't even describe how phenomenal that looked. But that game lasted 14 innings. The Giants won. And there were 5 Hall of Famers that played for the Giants on that team. And it was Mays. Maybe you want to guess him.
Marichal.
No, he didn't pitch.
Oh, okay.
He was on the team though. I'm talking about who actually played that day.
Okay.
Got Mays. I gave you that one.
And McCovey was on there. No, yet.
That's two.
Let's see. Was Thompson on there?
No.
God, 64.
First base. Baby Bull.
Oh, Orlando Cepeda.
Cha-cha.
Oh,
Cepeda,
terrific. Yes.
That's 3.
Oh, man. Again, I was 9 is 3 years old when this happened.
All
so,
right. The first guy to win a Cy Young in both leagues pitched for the Giants.
Was Koufax?
Nope. Gaylord Perry.
Perry, sorry, yes.
And then the 5th guy you'd never guess, and I'll tell you, it was Duke Snyder.
The Duke of Flatbush.
Yes, the Duke, absolutely. The only Hall of Famer on the Mets side was Casey Stengel, just as a manager.
The manager,
and he was managing the Mets at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. What memories?
Yes, yeah, no, it's great stuff. So, so what would you say is, like, both of you guys, your shining moment as a baseball fan? What do you feel was like the greatest thing that you saw as a baseball fan?
In person or on TV?
Let's go with in person.
Okay, vividly remember this because the Mets were in the wild card race. We were playing the Washington Nationals. It was a game in August. We were about 3 games back of the last wild card spot in the National League. And what is this guy's name for Washington? He was their closer a couple of years ago. After he left Washington, he went to Cincinnati. I don't remember his name, but it was a guy. He pitches with glasses. He was one of the best closers in the league. And we were down 4 runs going into in the bottom of the 9th. And somehow we tied the game on a solo home run, and then the next 2 guys get on base. And Todd Frazier, I love this guy. I always did love Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier walks up to the plate, and his walk-up music is Sinatra, so classic New York stuff.
Nice.
So he's walking up to the plate, and it's down to the last out. So if we don't score at least 3 runs, the game's over. And when I tell you the home run that he hit to tie that game, it felt like a playoff game. It really felt like a playoff game, and the place just went electric. And I was at a loss for words because I was actually ready to get up out my seat and leave because I didn't think they would come back.
Wow, that's tremendous. Benny, your shining baseball moment in
I'm
person?
gonna real quick watching was actually the first one was the '69 Mets, and the second one was the '77 Yankees against the Dodgers. But the my most memorable moment as a fan was actually I was living in Minnesota, and the Yankees came in town. This is probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and A-Rod was still playing, and the Twins went out to an early lead, and I had my Yankee jersey on, and we were getting a bit. My best friend who lives in Cedar Rapids, not Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Iowa. He drove down for the game, so we're both getting a business, right? And then A-Rod comes up and he crushes one, and it kind of quiets the crowd a little bit. And then he comes up 2 innings later, I think, hits a longer one. And now the crowd's like silent, and by then the Yankees are ahead. And the last one had to go 500 feet, and we were just enjoying the crap out of it. And then nobody was saying anything on the Twins side, and I don't even like A-Rod, but it was like one of the my favorite games ever.
Wow. Well, I have the distinction of having been in the park to see Barry Bonds' 500th and 600th home runs. So those were big celebrated moments. But I've also had the chance, and it's not really, I mean, it's live, but it's not in the park. I've had the opportunity to meet Orlando Cepeda and interview him extensively. I've had a chance to meet Vida Blue, peace home to him. I've had a chance to meet George Contos and a chance to meet Dave Stewart and a chance to meet Matt Cain. And I've got to say, all the baseball guys that I've interviewed, every single one of them has been wonderful. They are so nice and easy to interview and down to earth and really like, gee whiz, you're a fan kind of thing. None of them were stood. I mean, Matt Cain, multiple time World Series winner and the pitcher of a perfect game. And he couldn't have been more humble and more genuine and more like, wow, you're a fan of mine type attitude. And it's weird that baseball has such a hard time marketing its best stars, unlike the NBA and football does, because I think a lot of the personalities in baseball are actually really great guys, and they would be more marketable if baseball took the time to try to market them.
Vida Blue was always one of my, even though, growing up in the East Coast, I love Vida Blue. And I watched a documentary about 6 months ago on Reggie, and they interviewed Vida Blue. And you're right. He just seemed like a really good, down-to-earth guy.
You couldn't have a conversation with Vida Blue without leaving smiling ear to ear.
Yeah.
He had stories that just fell out of him, like out of his pockets and out of his shirt. He just, everywhere there was a story. Like every couple seconds, he had some amazing story about some, legendary Hall of Famer, that he played with, and that, his experiences in San Francisco and Oakland were bar none. He's a legend here, and I do miss him. He was really great to interview.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Then I also kind of wanted to dive deeper in with both of you guys, and with all the scandals and steroids and betting stuff and Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame and all this other stuff, why do you still love baseball so much, Benny?
My love for it has changed over the years. Now, like my biggest thing right now is, and living in Florida, the Florida State League, the minor league will be opening, I believe, this week. But I can go on a Sunday afternoon and buy a ticket for like $7. I like the ballpark in Clearwater. It's the Clearwater Threshers, which is the Florida State League team for the Phillies. And I get there, pay $7. They have the best Philly cheesesteak that has ever existed. And they have a place called McGillicuddy's, which has phenomenal craft beer. I buy my ticket, get my cheesesteak and my craft beer, and I'm probably only out like $25. And I'm watching baseball on a warm, sunny day. To me, it's as good as it gets. I have a hard time. Like I live about an hour from the Tropicana Field. the Rays stadium. I won't go there. It's not convenient. It's indoor, and it's like going to a public library. I just, now when they build a new stadium, yeah, maybe I'll go. But I love minor league baseball, and I mean I'll still watch. I watched baseball today on TV. I watched some of the Yankee game, and I will watch. I just have a hard time where, like, as a kid, I could watch 100 games in a row, beginning to end. I have a hard time doing that now. I'll watch, like, a couple innings, then I'll do something else, and I'll tune back in. But I can never stop loving baseball, though.
Alfred?
It's my favorite sport. I feel like out of all because I'm a fan of the four major North American sports: hockey, baseball, basketball, football, and I feel like throughout time, at least my time watching the sports, baseball has changed the least. So, like in the NBA, everything is now about scoring. Guys don't want to play defense, all that other stuff. The NFL, running backs aren't as effective as they used to be. You very rarely get any more 1,200, 1,500-yard rushing seasons. But baseball, the essence of the game, the way it's played, the only difference is that now, due to advances in medicine and things like pitchers are not throwing with the way a pitcher throws is not a natural arm motion. So now guys won't go 7, 8, 9 innings anymore. There's no more complete games, very rare, or there's no 20-game winners, or guys are retiring younger, so there's no more guys entering the 3,000 hit club. But other than that, game to game, the games seem like they haven't changed much.
Yeah. But is that why you love it? Because the game hasn't changed?
It stayed, for the most part, it stayed the same from the time I fell in love with it to now.
And I think maybe that's, why I love it, and maybe it ties in greater with what both of you guys are saying, is that there is that sense of history that when you tie into baseball, you're tying into, basically 200 years worth of people playing the game. And it's got that sort of like legend to it that, you're doing something kind of like, because you and I, we're all fans of wrestling too. And wrestling, despite what, the kids these days think, has an amazing history to it.
Absolutely.
That's the part that I love so much, more maybe than regular, what's going on with WrestleMania, in next week. I'd probably, going to fire up. I was watching WrestleMania 6 the other day, and it just to see like how the style of wrestling has changed, and how the promos have changed, and how the way the WWF covered their stars back then versus the way they cover them now. There's still that history, but I feel like that history keeps getting eroded by the WWF because they own all of it and they don't let it, be proliferated. Baseball has that history too, and I don't think it does that same kind of thing either, where it, ties people in to the older part of the game and makes people feel like they should love their team for the history of their team leading up until now, as opposed to just watching the stars of today. Understand, like, hey, there was, the Yankees have an amazing history of baseball, and that, something that should really be embraced, or that the Mets even, had, at least in the mid 80s, were a pretty amazing team, and that sort of thing kind of gets lost, I think, over time. And that's what I love about baseball, but I'm wondering if it's something that baseball couldn't do more about, as far as bringing it forwards and making new fans appreciate older baseball and the history behind it. So what are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, look at the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, they've only been in San Francisco, 65, 66, yeah, 5 years. But, I mean, what a history they have. I mean, going back to John McGraw, Casey Stengel, Mel Ott, those guys, Christy Mathewson. what an amazing, like the Red Sox, even though they didn't win all those years, you had Ted Williams and Pesky and
Bill Buckner.
Dom
He was actually a
DiMaggio.
really good player.
I'm going back like way back. But even the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals have a lot of these teams have very long, and the Reds. They have these great traditions and great histories, and it seems like baseball doesn't really do that a service.
Yeah, your thought, Alfred?
No, I agree. And if you look at my only knock on baseball, it's such a self-righteous sport. There's a lot of guys who should be in the Hall that are not in the Hall, and some of those exclusions bother me. So it's just, and then also, like, you see in the NFL, there are guys who retired in the 70s, 80s. They get in the Hall of Fame this year. In basketball, guys who played in the 50s, 60s, there's no time limit as to when they can get in the Hall of Fame. Baseball, what is it, 7 years? You're on the ballot if you don't get X amount of votes.
Then you got the Veterans Committee.
Veterans Committee, and even that's not guaranteed. There's
no
reason.
15 years, I think, yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason why, and especially because I'm a Met fan, so maybe I'm a bit biased. But Keith Hernandez should be in the Hall. There's no reason
my God,
why.
That's a no-brainer.
Great.
Guys like him, even guys who played for rival teams, because the Mets and the Braves don't like each other. But even a guy like Dale Murphy needs to be in the Hall.
Dale, absolutely.
MVPs.
It becomes a popularity contest, and that I do agree with you. It becomes a popularity contest with the writers, and I mean that shouldn't be what makes you a Hall of Fame member. Whether you're popular or not.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you look at a guy like Dale Murphy and then look at a guy like Robin Yount. They have similar accomplishments, and Yount's in, but Murphy can't be in. That's criminal. Guys like Kenny Lofton, another guy who should be in.
Oh yeah, phenomenal baseball player. The problem is once you let somebody in that maybe shouldn't be in, like a Harold Baines, who was a very good ball player for a long time. But he was never like a candidate for MVP. He never won a batting title. He never led the league in home runs. Just a very good ball player over a 20-year period. And now he's in. But you have like a Kenny Lofton, to me, is a far superior ball player to Harold Baines. But yet Baines is in and Lofton's not.
And then the other thing, especially being a Mets fan, it's sad for me because a lot of the all-time Met greats are not Hall of Fame level players. I'm talking about the Ed Kranepoels, the Jerry Koosmans.
Yeah, Jerry Koosman had a great career.
Yeah, a lot of our marquee guys, the Darryl Strawberries, the Doc Goodens, they weren't. And then it really hurt me that Gary Carter goes in and he says, "Oh, I want to go in as a Met," and they forced him to go in as an Expo.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I get it. The guy played a majority of his career there, but he didn't win a ring there.
No, that's a good point. Now I'm going to ask something that is close to all of our hearts, and Benny may have already answered it here. But what is the best stadium food you've had? Your favorite stadium food? I think Benny already covered it with your cheesesteak, but maybe you have something at Yankee Stadium that you've eaten. I
think the name of the vendor was Lobel's steak sandwich at Yankee Stadium. That was to die for. Yeah, that was my favorite.
That's great.
I'm gonna go.
It cost like $28, but yeah, it was worth it.
I am going to go with the Pat LaFrida steak sub at Citi Field.
Wow, that's great. What's on it?
So it's a foot-long sandwich. Pretty much, it's only got 3 ingredients outside of the bread, of course. It's Angus beef steak, sliced very thinly, and they pile it on, and then it has a provolone cheese and caramelized onions.
Damn, that sounds great.
And it has a gravy on it, which is pretty delectable.
I think that should be inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There's actually the most popular menu item on the Citi Field menu.
That's
So best $21 you'll spend in that ballpark.
Oh yeah.
If you guys ever came to San Francisco, you would have to try the crab salad sandwich that we have out here.
That sounds great.
It's really, really good, but it's like $35, and you'll want something else after because it's not very big. But the taste of it is something else, and it's really, really phenomenal. But and the garlic fries are tremendous here too. But for me, the thing that I always have to have when I go to the park is a carnation chocolate malt. That is just, it was the thing that my dad used to buy me when I used to go as a kid.
That's old school.
They have the little wooden spoons that you dig in the flat end on it, so it just you have that taste, that texture of both ice cream, chocolate ice cream, malt ice cream, and wood. The texture of the wooden spoon. And on a hot day, that says baseball to me. That's the kind. I wouldn't always get a hot dog. Well, my dad always brought his own peanuts, but I'd insist that he get me a chocolate malt. And so that's something that will always remind me of baseball. So, maybe there's that too. It's that baseball does remind me of some of the better days I had with my dad, which, we didn't part on the best of terms, but going back to baseball always reminds me of, the times that we'd spend at the park together. We'd go a lot more to baseball games than we would to football or
same here.
anything else. Well, it's just Candlestick was so easy to go to. My dad would buy one ticket, and then usually they'd throw in a couple other tickets for free because the game was so unsold out. It was such a, Candlestick was such a blah place to go. It was good to see a day game. It just was terrible an evening and night games. When the wind would channel right off the hill and right into the stadium and freeze you right where you stood. In fact, they used to hand out things called craw to candlesticks, which were these little buttons, orange buttons, that you would get if you stayed for extra innings. If you stayed for the end of an extra inning game at night, they would give out the craw to candlesticks to prove that you were able to withstand the freezing cold of Candlestick. And it had the SF logo, and it had little icicles forming from it, and it's a craw to Candlestick. So that's kind of a legend out here. But anyway, guys, we're wrapping up at the end of the show. I'd like you guys to give your social media links or talk to anyone tell our fans about what you've got coming up, and then we'll sign out. So Benny, why don't you promote yourself?
I'm a busy guy. So tomorrow night I have a show finding me on YouTube. It's True Crime with the bad girl and the player. I'm the player. And my co-host is Brittany Brown, who's in the New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame.
She's been on our show.
This story is going to be about the Menendez brothers, which is very interesting. And then Dan and Benny in the Ring Tuesday night is going to be our WrestleMania predictions. I do a show called The 30 on Thursday night, which is a wrestling game show. So we get assigned a random topic. We get 90 seconds to cut a promo. Our scores get graded, and we all vie for the championship. And then Friday I do Wrestling Remembered, which we pick random topics. Like we picked 1 week we did territories. We covered territories. Last week we did the magazines. The magazine, because
the wrestler.
I think all of us have great memories about the wrestling magazines back in the day.
Oh yes, absolutely. And
so I love talking about wrestling or baseball.
Sure. And how can people get a hold of you?
Just Benny, Benny Scala. If you type in The Playa, Playa, you can get me that way too. There's a long story behind that one, but pretty much Facebook. I don't do much on Twitter or X or Instagram or any of those other ones. Just Facebook kind of guy. But yeah.
All right. And Alfred, tell everyone what you're up to.
Actually, I've been on a sabbatical from wrestling, podcasting, so I'm just taking a break right now. But everybody can reach me at ref_al_Stevens STEVENS, and I'm usually on social media talking wrestling and baseball and football. So yep, that I'm just relaxing for the moment.
Well, that's great, and it's great to have you back on the show. It's great to see you guys this week. It was a lot of fun talking baseball
Talking
with
about
you.
baseball, yeah.
Absolutely. It's as much as I love wrestling, it is great to have a change of pace and to talk the stickball with you guys, and maybe one of these days you guys will get a chance to come out here, or if I'm ever out in New York, I'll take you guys out to a game of your choosing, or to Florida if you know.
You know what? I'd meet you guys in New York for that.
Wow. Well, that would be a lot of fun. Maybe one day we can make it happen. Anyway, guys, thanks for being on the show. We'll have you on again soon. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.